Okay, y'all can see this. Now, y'all are going to be looking at the screen, right? You'll have to look at me. So, I'll just sit down right here. And that way I can look at the screen also. How I got started in beekeeping. Jimmy Oakley's Flying Circus. And literally that's what it's been. So let's see if I can find a place to make this go that way. Okay, commercial beekeeping is what I'm talking about because I was a hobbyist beekeeper before that, and I'm back to hobby beekeeper now. But I got my start in commercial beekeeping in the Rio Grande Valley in 1975. In the spring of '75, I went down to the valley. I'll say these are all pictures that I took, and then I have digitalized them and put them into a form. So I hope that they're of a decent quality where you can see them. This is a commercial bee yard in the Rio Grande Valley. And as we get to these pictures, you'll see a little bit more. But this is a truck here, and these are the covers. This is Donnie Hobgewachs, and he's the man who got me started in beekeeping. He's German. Hobgewachs is the name. And so he and his family grew up in, ran bees in the Mission area in Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley before the Africanized bees came. So he took me down the valley for a couple of 3 days. And this is his tandem axle truck that he had. And there's this big smoker up there. And what he's doing here, these are queen cells that he has purchased. And in the sack is queen cell protectors, because we're going to put these cells into splits that have just been made. When we talk about a split, we split the hive right in half. And that's what this is here. These boxes right in here are the ones that brought down from Nebraska, and they were in doubles. And what he did, he took the top box off and he put a migratory cover on the top, on the bottom and on the top, and that's what he made the split in. And that's what I'm doing here is I'm checking. This is Jimmy Oakley, way back when. Back when he was a young man, these are my Kmart boots. I bought those just before I went down. I've got my yellow bee shirt on. So, and we're just checking hives now to see that they're sufficient to put the cells into. So he's made splits, and he's going to put cells in those splits as opposed to putting in queens. And this is before the Africanized bee came to the Rio Grande Valley, so you could put hives out like this. They could mate with the drones in any one of these hives, and you'd have a good queen. Since the bees have come across the border, that whole region down there, any natural mating is going to get you an Africanized bee. So this is the cell protector. The queen cell is in there, and he's going to put it right in there in between the frames, put the lid back on top, and I think in 2 weeks he came back to pick them up, and he had about a 95% acceptance on those queen cells. So 95 out of 100 of those requeened properly, and so he considered that to be a very good percentage. So I bought bees that spring of '75, that summer of '75, and we brought them back. He brought them back up to Texas to me, and I started my first bee yard in Kaufman, Texas, which is south of the Dallas area where I live. And this is my three-quarter ton truck. I had a camper on the back of it. I took the camper off, and that now became my bee truck. And I worked for a man in data processing, and he ran cows down near Kaufman, and so he said I could put my bees on his land. Now this is the north, and this is the west. So I had my northwest wind block, and I put them down in this low area there. And so this is the day I picked them up and brought them down. Donnie came by and dropped them off to me in the alley behind my house, and I went and picked them up the next morning and took them down to Kaufman. So basically this is it. You just back the truck up and set them off on each side of the truck. I think there was 33 hives there, and I set them out. We had some mesquite, these are mesquite trees right around in here, and we ended up getting vetch and clover in that area down there. But this is the first day I set my hives out. I thought it looked pretty good myself. That week I went to Pecan Gap, Texas, and picked up 33 or 35 boxes that his dad dropped off for me. So beekeepers helping beekeepers. Now I have all these hives supered up, 1 to 2 supers on each one of the hives. This is exactly the same yard, but I now have supers on them so I can catch some honey or make some honey. So I moved the bees from Kaufman, which was setting on the vetch and the clover, over to Johnson County, where we set on the cotton. And this was all cotton out in this area here. At the end of the season, I had an opportunity to go into commercial beekeeping, or go to work for a commercial beekeeper. And this is the yard there I had in Johnson County. And I've loaded my bees up to take them down to Cedar Lane, Texas. So we started our working in commercial beekeeping in Cedar Lane, Texas in the spring of '76. Now, Cedar Lane is just a wide place in the road between Bay City and Sargent. Sargent's on the coast all the way down there. And Cedar Lane consists of a Baptist church and a post office and gas station there, and down at the crossroads you've got a grocery store. So that's it. That's Cedar Lane, Texas. But it's a wonderful beekeeping area. So, one more. This is my daughter, Christy. Christy's 42. Wherever Kay's at. I think she's over 40 now. This is when she was 4 years old. She did not want to go to Mother's Day out that day. I went to work bees, so she went to the bee yard. We have made her a veil. This is a bridal veil here, and that's a beach hat. And so if you're going to the bee yard, you've got to have a veil. So she went to the yard for me that day while we were checking bees. And here's my bees in a deep and a single, and these are migratory covers on the top with the little slit lids on them. So that's what you do with your kids when you're in beekeeping. You put them to work. So this area of Texas is a lot of pecan trees, St. Augustine grass. This is typical of the area that we were at down there at Cedar Lane. And this was our shed. These are mating nukes over here. This is all the work in here. This is Jack Eglin's bee truck, big tandem axle truck. We put boxes on it, go out to the bee yards. So this is typically what you'd see in a working area, just a shed that you're working out of, and these big oak trees and pecan trees around it made wonderful weather down there. You probably, if you got 2 days of freezing weather, that was about it. This is one of the bee yards. The hive set in triples. That's the way Jack brought them down. He brought them down in doubles and added boxes at the top. So the bees had an opportunity to build from here up into here. And what we're doing here, this is a box of bees. This is an empty box with an empty box for them to fall through. This is a box with the queen excluder on top of it. This is a box of bees. So what we're doing is we're taking these boxes here, shaking the bees, the nurse bees out of them all the way down into this. This is a complete box which we use as a cell builder. So this is a box full of nurse bees that we're shaking out in order to start our queen cell operation. So which we go and shake bees on a regular basis. This right here is a frame of queen cells. We'll see those a little bit later, but that's probably going to go into one of those boxes so they can be cleaned up. Jack was quite industrious. He'd been keeping bees since he was about 12 years old, so his cousin had built him a forklift, and Jack used 2-place pallets, two to the pallet. Instead of a 4-place pallet, he used a 2, and he had this loader where he didn't have to do all the heavy lifting anymore. And we were moving bees from one yard to the other, or maybe we were loading bees in order for him to start back to North Dakota. So that's some of the apparatuses that we use to make beekeeping a little bit easier. That was Jack's tandem axle truck. He also owned a semi-trailer, and he would load the semi-trailer. This is a full load of bees. I think there's about 440 hives, or maybe 600 hives. I'd have to count. But these are all single hives. They're netted down, they're roped down, and he's going to send that truck back to North Dakota. So you moved with his truck, and you also moved on the open road with a tandem axle, with a semi-truck. So now here's a semi-tractor, and here's a semi-trailer. Got that? Now there's my truck right there. So what do? You turn my truck into a tractor, and then here's my trailer right there. So I bought a 3-axle trailer out of Medill, Oklahoma. That was my bee trailer. And since I needed a bee truck, so there's my bee truck, and there's my bee trailer. And this is a load of bees here. And I think we're outside of a Walmart in somewhere near Waco or something like that. But that's a load going back to North Dakota of what Jack probably couldn't carry on his. You remember back, let's see where we go. See that trailer, that bed right there? That bed's been changed out to that right there. So you make your truck what you need. I've got rope hooks on there. That was a utility truck bed that I got put on there, so I traded that out somewhere. And as I got bigger, I got a new truck. There's my F-250 truck. And Randy, are you here? My son Randy was here tonight. That's him right there. And this is my load. There's 13 rows, 5 wide and 5 high. That's about 325 colonies that I carried on that truck, and I had an overdeck there where I could carry some additional stuff. But this is my load of bees going back to North Dakota. So we were migratory beekeepers. So in the spring of 1979, I took over Jack Eglin's queen ring operation because he's not going to come back to Texas anymore. So I picked up his queen ring operation, which consisted of 2-place baby nukes. And he'd set these nukes out, and every 2 weeks he'd go by and collect queens out of them. They were 2-sided, so he'd have a queen cell on each side. You'd go back through and see how many of the queens mated and got back in there, and then he'd cage them out. I think he had a box there, and he'd cage them out. We'd put them in the cages, and he used both cells and cage queens in order to make the increase in his operation. So this is Jack's baby nuke operation here. When I took over the business, we moved from the open field over on the creek, and this is Caney Creek, ran right along here, and this is a nice wooded area, and right out of here is a big open area. And so as we put our bees in this, this is our two-place nuke here. This side, that side, you have an opening on each side. There's an entrance and there's air holes, because when you put the nuke in, put the queen cell in the first time, you have to close that nuke up for 3 days, and so the queen cell can hatch out, because otherwise it's such a small amount of bees, 1 cup of bees. If you don't keep them in there until that queen hatches, the bees will actually abscond. So we would close it up, close that door up, and just the air holes. So as we see this a little bit later down the line, we'll see what looks inside. But this is our two-place mating nuke. And here's all our nukes set out. We'd set them out in some kind of pattern here so that we'd know how to work them, because we're going to work down the line here and around, back around that way, but also so it gives some distance between the mating nukes so that the queens would have some kind of idea of where they came out. You know that bees know where they live, but when you get that many of them and it's a brand new queen, she might have trouble finding her way back to the nuke that she came out of. So again, here's the nukes. We've set them in some kind of pattern so that it looked, they're little bitty, they're sitting right on the ground. Let's go back here. You see that right there? That is a stainless steel rod. The cows, when they'd come through, they'd kick those nukes over. So I got some stainless steel rods from one of the guys that worked over at Dow Chemical, and we stapled those rods down so the cows wouldn't kick the nukes over. So anyway, this is what it looks like inside. We're feeding raw sugar, and these frames here are just a wooden frame, and we'll staple a piece of wax right there and put it in there, and the first time we go in to put the queen cell in, we'll use hot wax in order to get that to stick right up there. Once we get it inside, the bees, that 1 cup of bees in there, will draw that comb out, just eating the raw sugar, and that's their process. I see some pollen up in here, I see sealed brood here, and I've got queens in both of those boxes there. So that's what the two-place mating nuke looked like. It was a hot shot is what it was. 1 cup of bees, 2 frames and a feeder, and you'd put your queen cell in. Every 2 weeks you'd come back around and work this box again. So, okay, 84. Okay, so in 1980 we changed the system a little bit. This is the process we went through. I showed you that box that Jack was shaking out of all those bees. This is a cell builder. Those are bees right there. And I shook those bees off of this frame here. We want those cells to be cleaned up before we graft into them. So we've allowed the bees 24 hours to clean those cells up and prepare them to receive a queen, a larva. And my wife did all the grafting on that. These are the cells after they've been through the process. I can't tell. I think this is a cell starter hive here. If that's just one box, it's a cell starter. We leave them in there for 24 hours, and then we'd move them to a cell finisher colony. So there's 125 to the bar. So she would graft 100 cells each time that she'd graft, and she'd graft 300 to 400 cells a day. That's what it took to keep that operation going. So there's the frames coming out of the cell starter hive, and then these are in the, I believe this is going to be a cell finisher, and then this is what it looked like. You'd use that many bees in order to draw those cells out. Drawing out 1 or 2 or 10 or 12 cells is something, but to get a hive to draw out 100 cells, you've got to have a lot of nurse bees. They've got to have a lot of feed, and they're queenless hives, by the way, too. So a queenless hive, they have this great incentive to draw out queen cells. So this is pulling the frames out. These are finished cells. You can see how long they are. They're finished cells. And what we're doing is we're going to pull these cells out, get them ready to go to the mating yard. So I'm looking at the cells to see what they look like, putting them in the box here. We're going to take them down. Here's our queen right colony here. Here's our excluder, and then the finisher colony is up here. So we'll continue to put fresh brood in these top boxes that'll hatch out to keep lots of nurse bees there. This is a queen right colony down here, and the excluder here keeps those bees from coming up, but they still will continue to draw those queen cells out up here. So cell starter colony, this is a cell finisher colony, and these cells are getting ready to go to the queen yard. So what we have is a process of candling. What you're doing, you're holding it up to the light to see if you can see a queen in there. A movement, especially if she's the right age, she's going to actually be broke loose, and she's going to move one way or the other when you turn those frames. So what we're doing is I'm looking at those cells to candle them so that I can tell if they're ready to put into the nukes or not, if they're ripe. That box right there is a box of bees. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm brushing the bees off. This is a tortilla holder is what this is. And we put a cloth in there, and as I take those cells out, I'll lay them gently down in the tortilla holder, because what we're doing, we're preparing to get all these mating nukes put together, to put out our mating nukes for the first time, I think. We're putting the cells in. So, again, there's these are queens that are very fragile. You've got to be gentle with them, and so we want to keep them warm, and we want to keep them safe. So we're punching out the cells going into the mating nukes. These are the bees. When we get ready to fill our mating nukes up, we need lots of bees. In this case, we're going to a 4-frame nuke, a 4-place nuke instead of a 2-place nuke, and we're going to use 2 cups of bees instead of 1 cup of bees, so it's a lot more stable. And as we shake these bees, we'll put syrup on them so that these nurse bees can fill up with lots of syrup as if they were a new swarm, and that way when they get on that new foundation, they can draw that out quickly. Bad picture. I don't know what you can see of that. There's my truck. There's my lovely wife. Kay, are you still here?
Yes.
Okay, she's still here. This is our shaker box right here, and what we're doing is we're shaking out of hives into that funnel, into that box. So that's how we get the bees in there. We find the queen in this box, and we take and shake all the bees off the brood into these boxes, and that's what we take to the mating yard to fill our mating nukes with. Sorry about the picture. Here's our 4-place nukes now. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got this design from Leroy Bourdillon, which is at Jasper, Texas. The packages we bought last year were from the Bourdillons. They're over in Louisiana, so this is the same family. But this is a medium super, and it's divided 4 different ways. And each one of these, each corner of the nuke will have an opening. There's an opening there, and there's an opening there, and there's an opening around over there. So you divide this 4 ways so that each side of the box gets an opening, and you get a different mark on each side of the box. There's a yellow, there's a green. So you put these marks right by the door so that when the queen flies out, she orients to a location, also maybe to a color there. This is a big jug of syrup. We're going to fill these mating nukes up. We're going to fill the feeders up with syrup instead of using raw sugar. Also, we can feed Fumidel B in that syrup, and that helps with nosema. So here's our mating yard. We had 200 of these, and we had 200 of these, and we worked 25 a day, 4 days a week. So we had 800 possibilities that we could get as a cycle went through. So, but anyway, and these are our lids laying off to the side here. These are asphalt shingles. This is one of the things that we found out the bees did not try to chew through. And because of the heat, that asphalt shingle would sag down and make that a nice tight fit all the way around. So once you got the asphalt shingle on there and got the lid on top, you got a very nice mating unit. And it was their air hole there and an entrance there. So each compartment had an air hole and it had an entrance. So this was an excellent system that we finally worked into. We'd get about a 95 to 98% return on our queen cells, and that's why we went to it, because it was so much better. Oh, you saw that jug of syrup there? That's where it came from. Child labor. If our kids went to school during the day, went to public school instead of being homeschooled, but that's my son Randy, and that's my oldest daughter Lori, and these are 100-pound bags of sugar. I did not ask them to dump the sugar themselves. I dumped the sugar. All they had to do is mix it up and run it off into bucket, into the jug. So that's how we fed our syrup. We fed syrup. This is the queen caging process. Here's our little nukes all lined up there. And what we do is you sit down. This is a sit-up-on right here. You'll see it again in a minute. And you sit up on it. And it's got a seat. And then under this is a box. It's a bee box is what it is. And under that bee box, you'll have the frames that you're going to, the cages you're going to need to cage into, and you go through this mating nuke all 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. You lay the cover aside. You work that one. You close it back up. You lay the next one. So as you sit down, you can work through all 4 of these, and then you move the next one. So you just leapfrog down the way. That's me, and that's Kay, and that's Nancy Keefit. Nancy Keefit is a commercial beekeeper now. She runs bees into, Nancy and Dennis Keefit, they run bees into North Dakota. And Nancy worked with us in order to supply queens for Dennis as he was working. So she traded labor for queens. So that's Lindsay. So you can see how desperate this bee yard is. The kids are running around without any kind of protection. There's our sit-up-on right there. These are our queen cages we're going to put in there. This is Christy about 10 years, she must be about 16 there. 10, 12 years after that first picture you saw of her. And I know it's later because we got rid of our van. We've got a Ford diesel Escort there. And so Kay and Christy are supplying their sit-up-ons. They're going to go cage queens in. So this is the caging process. There's Christy. Here's the Nukes right here. These are the Keep It girls. That girl does not have a shirt on. Working a mating nuke is very nice because you have very few bees in there, a little bit of smoke in there, and you can work through the frames. You look on the frames to see if you see any eggs. If you have eggs, then you just keep turning the frame. There's only 2 frames in there, so you just keep turning until you find her, and then you can cage that up. By the way, these are starline queens that we were raising that were produced by the Daydant. So Daydant & Sons would supply us with queen bees to graft from. And by the way, the geneticist that was working that operation at that point in time was Larry Connors. So we go kind of far back from Larry Connors. This is my 4-place mating nuke, the Cadillac of mating nukes. We're using plastic frames here. Here's our feeder we'd put syrup in. You'd have 2 other frames besides that. And it's a matter of smoking it, lifting those frames out. You see a pretty decent brood pattern there. You see the surplus of some stores in here. This is all honey here. And you see the bird palm on the cover here. So these are very well fed. Here's our feeder here. These were feeders that were built and dipped in paraffin so that they would hold the liquid. And again, if there's an air hole here, then there's a door on that side. So the door on this side, then there's an air hole on that side. So each compartment had an air hole and a door. Now there's my queen cage. We're using a wooden 3-compartment wooden queen cages. And thank you, Samuel. Isn't that nice? Look at that. That you couldn't ask for better than that. Look at all that feed. Here's pollen. Here's sealed brood, and there's the queen. And you go down and you can cage queens all day long, and you can feel really good about it when they're looking like that. So this was one of the better times. We're out of that business now, but it was a fun job when we were. I thought it was fun while we were in it. So again, here's your caged queen. So this is our 4-place mating nuke. Here's your asphalt covers again, and we divide those boxes in the middle. We set those boxes up before we put them together, ran them through the table saw, and cut the places where all the pieces would fit together. So we had 4 nice tight compartments in there. The feeding, you use whatever you can. We're feeding the 2-place nukes here, and when we got away from our initial setup, then we'd use the 1-gallon jugs for syrup after that. But it worked out better if we'd feed with the syrup because we could get the chemical, the nosema in there. Migration, we started in 76 and migrated to North Dakota and did that all the way to 84. And again, this is our setup. There's my ton and a half truck, 1-ton truck. And that was a 60-gallon tank on this side. Maybe it's 80 gallons on this side, 60 on the other, and 20 behind the seat. So we had quite a bit of fuel we could put on. We had the big van, and we had the travel trailer, the cargo trailer. And we'd do this every 6 months. When school was out in Texas, we'd migrate to North Dakota. And at Christmas time, we'd reverse the process. We'd bring a full load of bees back to Texas, and then a full load of boxes back to Texas. So half the bees would be gone by the time we got ready to come back. I think that must be Kay, and that's Christy, and that's Lori and Christy and Randy. Anyway, that's what we look like, and I think this was at Crystal Lake in South Dakota. When we were in North Dakota, I worked for Jack Egman. I think that's a 62. This is an 80, and this is an 80. This is a Cowan uncapper. He had steam knives on that, and he would uncap the frames that go down the belt, and you'd load them in these extractors, and they'd run somewhere between 18 and 20, maybe as many as 22 barrels of honey a day when they would extract. So this was a very high efficiency operation that Jack ran here. It was run off of a steam boiler, so that's what heated his knives. This little apparatus here was called that's a bee killer. Very efficient operation. They catch right in here. So there's enough bees in the air all the time. You notice the spots on the wall too. We'd end up with a lot of bees. So about every other day you'd empty that out. That fluorescent light there, that's a black light in it. That would attract the bees over there. All right. Now you'll notice these are my people here, Randy and Christy and Lori, and they're all smiling real big because Kay is in the driver's seat. This is our staple horse, and that's what we stapled the frames with. And they're laughing because Kay's out of place. She didn't run the staple horse, but she got premier billing in this particular picture. This is Christy. She would put the top bar and the 2 end bars on. She'd pass it over to Lori. Lori would slide the foundation in, slip the foundation in. This is Duragilt foundation. It's a plastic midrib with a wax imprint on the outside of it. And then Lori put the top bar, the bottom bar on. Then slide it over to Randy. These are the ones ready to finish. And it would go ch-ch, ch-ch. And he'd flip it over, ch-ch, ch-ch. And that was it. Those frames were ready to go. They'd go in the box there, and we'd slip a wedge in them a little bit later. And they'd usually put between 60 to 100, maybe as many as 200 boxes together each year. So that was their summer work. They had to get boxes ready. So that little assembly operation went along as long as they had stuff to do. This right here is frame staples. And my wife made a deal with Irwin Blue's wife, and I don't remember what her name was. She bought
to more interesting things.
She bought 250,000 of these frame staples the first year we bought. Before we were finished, we used all 250,000 of those frame staples up. But anyway, get somebody that's got a good ear for a good eye for money, and they'll save you some money. So Kay did a good job on getting staples for her. And this is what we did. Here's our deep boxes here, and we spray painted them there. Look how young he looks. My goodness. Spray painted them, and so we put together boxes in the side of the barn up there and spray paint them in order to get them painted up. So in how much time we have? I think I got enough time. Okay, after we were running bees up there, migrating back and forth, we finally got to the point where we put in our own honey house. The farmstead we lived on had a Quonset hut, and I believe this must be about 30 feet across and maybe 60 foot deep. I think that's about what it measured out. Here's my barrels here. We went over to Minnesota, and we went over to Grand Forks, and we bought chocolate barrels or lard barrels, one or the other. It's either chocolate or lard. And you wash these barrels out, and that's what you use to put honey in. So this is the Quonset hut we put our honey house into, and this was the load of equipment we brought back. Here's a either 250 or 500 gallon water tank, and here's studs and insulation and everything we needed to put this in. We figured it all out. So in the back of this Quonset hut is timbers in the floor, and those timbers were for grain bins, but it worked out perfectly for me to use those as floor footers. And so we built our operation in 2 compartments. This was the hot room, and this was the extracting room, and we used these things in the floor here in order to put up our walls. So used to play a lot of basketball in there too. So this is our
Daryl and Daryl.
Yeah. That's my brother Daryl, and that's my other brother Daryl right there. So working on this, you can see the ceiling joist going in here, and you can see our stud. This is going to be a big open door right in here. But I kind of molded this honey house, the honey room to what we already had to go there. So you can see my insulation. It's a big thick insulation up here. It gets very cold in North Dakota, and you don't want to have to heat the whole state, so you try to keep it all within the room you're working in. This right here just so happened, you look at that right there, I'm measuring off for a window. There's nothing like a room without a window. Here's my insulation in the walls here, and I'm measuring off for a window. One of the best things I did. This right here is a floor drain. I took part of that wooden plate up and dug it out and did me a drain going out the back of the building so we could wash everything down and put it out that floor drain. So another convenience there. So here's our hot room. We've got insulation in this wall here, and this wall here. And we're going to heat that with an electric heater and a fan. That's all it took. And we'd run it up to about 95, close to 100 degrees in there to heat our honey up before we extracted it. Here's the hot room when it's finished. We used masonite on the walls, painted yellow. Here's a 42 frame extractor here, Kelly. I think this is a 16 frame data in extractor here. This is a hot water tank in which we circulated the water going in here and out here, and would circulate that water along the top, down here. It circulated in coils underneath this, in a coil underneath this, and underneath this, and then it returned back to the hot water heater again to be reheated and run one more time. So we did not have an extractor. We scratched our frames, the same process we used to uncap here. We used scratchers down in here, and we scratched all the frames that we extracted. This is what it looked like. This tank right under here would catch all of our cappings. We'd scratch and put them right down that hole in the middle, and about every other day we'd drain the honey off the bottom, and we could scoop the wax off the top. We did have that 250-gallon tank sitting outside the building there, and we had a pump that we pumped the water in, so we had running water inside here. And there's my little window. I looked at a lot of sunsets out that window as we continued to work for the evening. These are grids on the floor, so you wouldn't stand on the concrete floor. And that way you just every once in a while wash that down, and you didn't have to stand in anything that was sticky. So, and we just go around and around, back and forth till we got the honey extracted. Now that honey would pump up through a honey sump right there, and it would pump up through that pipe. As it went up through the pipe, it'd go up to a clarifier, and then it would come down to a 3-barrel tank here, and help settle out some more. And then this was a 20-barrel tank here to hold honey in, and this is what we do. We put our honey in these 55-gallon drums, and they would go by semi-load to Minneapolis for sale. So that's how we sold our honey, and we'd probably make somewhere between 100, 125 to 135 drums of honey each year, which at that time would net us about $35,000 or $40,000 for honey. Here's my honey super storage up here, and there again is the fall. It pump up here and come all the way down. So where we go there? All right. So okay, another invention. In the summertime, when you want to work in your honey house, but you don't want bees in your honey house, you have screens. So I have a door that closes here, and I put a screen insert. I had 1 or 2 of these, and you could open the door up enough to get these screen inserts. So with a window on the back side and the screen insert on the front side, very pleasant place to work, and the door to go in and out was right there. This is Jimmy Odegaard. He's Norwegian. He's the man who bought the operation. Remember that big stack of barrels was up there? That's what it's down to now. So we did make some honey that year. All right, we're doing good. Okay. 10 years of work. This is the farmstead we lived on. We lived on the northeast quarter of the section. This is durum wheat, which they make pasta. Thank you. Pasta out of. I needed that help. This is the main house. This is the grain bins that belong to Mr. Fugner. This was our mailbox all the way out here, so you come down the road all the way out here to get your mail. But there was a cut through the shelter belt right there, so if we came up the road, we could come right in there. But this is how far you had to go to get the mail. It was probably at least a quarter of a mile down there, or maybe more. So this is the place we worked in the summertime, a very pleasant place to work. This is just after a rain shower has gone from the west going to the east. All the systems moved from the western part of the state to the east over toward Minnesota. And here's my rainbow. I don't know if y'all can see that very well or not. I may be in a bad position here, but this is the wheat before it's turned, a nice green, that durum wheat before it's turned, and there's a panorama of a rainbow. I just stick things together. So here we go. There's my honey house right there. This was the building that the kids put together the frames in. This was our main house here with the hedge all about. This was our propane tank out there. We had central heat, and in the wintertime we'd blow all the water out of the pipes, and we'd leave the thermostat down to 42 degrees as low as we could get it, and we'd leave the house closed up without heat until the propane tank ran out sometime in the spring. And this is my tandem axle truck here. I got a new truck. I got a new trailer. This is my tandem axle trailer to go over my truck, and this is when we're getting ready to take bees south. And this is I don't know what that is. Maybe that should be in the this is the barn where we did our painting. So that's our panorama of the operation there. Okay, I didn't get to do this in East Texas, but one year we had, what year was that? 1981, we had a big flood. There was 12 inches of rain at Wharton. 12 inches of rain at Wharton. You know what happens with 12 inches of rain at Wharton when it gets down to Cedar Lane? By the time it got to Sargent, there wasn't any way for it to get out into the ocean, so it backed up. And overnight, almost, this water backed up. I have a bee yard right there, and this is my road going down to the bee yard. So that's how much water there was between me and the bees. This is our gate we'd go through right here. So we'd come down this gate and drive on over there to get our bees, but we couldn't get to them because of the water. This road runs here, runs across, and there's actually a bridge that goes across Craney Creek over here, and Mama Sophie's Pit Barbecue is right back over there. We never came through that gate except this particular time when we couldn't get through, and we came through this time. There's my bees sitting on the knoll, and we came through in boats. So in order to get our bee yard out, we had to go over there and get them, take them and load them into the boats and carry them back. So that's how we migrated out of that particular bee yard. So, all right, I thank you.